A reading from the book of 2 Samuel. Today is October 2nd. Our reading from 2 Samuel is chapter 12. But the Lord was displeased with what David had done. And the Lord sent Nathan to David. He came to him and said, "There were two men in the same city, one rich and one poor. The rich man had very large flocks and herds, but the poor man had only one little ewe lamb that he had bought. He tended it and grew up together with him and his children. It used to share his morsel of bread, drink from his cup, and nestle in his bosom. It was like a daughter to him. One day a traveler came to the rich man, but he was loath to take anything from his own flock or herds to prepare a meal for the guest who had come to him. So he took the poor man's lamb and prepared it for the man who had come to him. David flew into a rage against the man and said to Nathan, 'As the Lord lives, the man who did this deserves to die. He shall pay for the lamb 4 times over because he did such a thing and showed no pity.' And Nathan said to David, 'That man is you. Thus said the Lord, the God of Israel, it was I who anointed you king over Israel, and it was I who rescued you from the hand of Saul. I gave you your master's house and possession of your master's wives. I gave you the house of Israel and Judah, and if that were not enough, I would give you twice as much more. Why then have you flouted the command of the Lord and done what displeases him? You have put Uriah the Hittite to the sword. You took his wife and made her your wife and made him killed by the sword of the Ammonites. Therefore the sword shall never depart from your house, because you spurned me by taking the wife of Uriah the Hittite and making her your wife. Thus says the Lord, I will make a calamity rise against you from within your own house. I will take your wives and give them to another man before your very eyes, and he shall sleep with your wives under this very sun. You acted in secret, but I will make this happen in sight of all Israel and in broad daylight." David said to Nathan, "I stand guilty before the Lord." And Nathan replied to David, "The Lord has remitted your sin. You shall not die. However, since you have spurned the enemies of the Lord by this deed, even the child about to be born to you shall die." Nathan went home, and the Lord afflicted the child that Uriah's wife born to David, and it became critically ill. David entreated God for the boy. David fasted, and he went in to spend night lying on the ground. The senior servant of his household tried to induce him to get him up from the ground, but he refused, nor would he partake of food with them. On the 7th day the child died. David's servants were afraid to tell David that the child was dead, for they said, "We spoke to him when the child was alive, and he wouldn't listen to us. How can we tell him that the child is dead? He might do something terrible." When David saw his servants talking in whispers, David understood that the child was dead. David asked his servants, "Is the child dead?" "Yes," they replied. Thereupon David rose from the ground. He bathed and anointed himself, and he changed his clothes. He went into the house of the Lord and prostrated himself. Then he went home and asked for food, which they set before him, and he ate. His courtiers asked him, "Why have you acted in this manner? While the child was alive, you fasted and wept, but now that the child is dead, you rise and take food." He replied, "While the child was still alive, I fasted and wept because I thought, 'Who knows, the Lord may have pity on me, and the child may live.' But now that he is dead, why should I fast? Can I bring him back again? I shall go to him, but he will never come back to me." David consoled his wife Bathsheba. He went to her and lay with her. She bore a son, and she named him Solomon. The Lord favored him. He sent a message through the prophet Nathan, and he was named Jedediah at the instance of the Lord. Joab attacked Rabbah of Ammon and captured the royal city. Joab sent messengers to David and said, "I have attacked Rabbah, and I have already captured the water city. Now muster the rest of the troops and besiege the city and capture it. Otherwise I will capture the city myself, and my name will be connected with it." David mustered all the troops and marched on Rabbah, and he attacked it and captured it. The crown was taken from the head of their king, and it was placed on David's head. It weighed a talent of gold, and on it were precious stones. He also carried off a vast amount of booty from the city. He led out the people who lived there and set them to work with saws, iron threshing boards, and iron axes, or assigned them to brickmaking. David did this to all the towns of Ammon. Then David and all the troops returned to Jerusalem.